Alright then. Hey everyone, how you doing? Hope you're all going well. This is my first attempt at an impromptu vlog style video. I don't want to make this a habit, but for reasons that we'll come to right now, all I can really do is make vlogs. And I have a few things I want to talk about. I just saw Batman vs. Superman, and I have to talk about it because, well, we'll come to that. I also want to talk about the channel itself, as I have a few announcements to make. I want to talk about what my thinking is with the channel, what I want to do with it. We'll get to that. First of all, Batman vs Superman. Full spoilers. I want to talk about the whole film. I've just made some notes here. Nothing too scripted today, and I'm going to do this in one take as well. So forgive me if there are gaffes. But Jesus Christ, what a disaster of a movie. I try to avoid superhero films as much as possible. I mean, I watch a lot of them, but, I didn't see Fantastic Four, for instance, last year. But I think this is the worst superhero film I've seen since The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I really regret watching. I wish I hadn't seen that film, because this isn't quite as bad as The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it really has its moments. I wasn't expecting a lot. I didn't go in expecting much, but it failed to live up to even those expectations. It completely misunderstands Batman and Superman. It has no respect for the source material it's working from. It doesn't follow good filmmaking conventions. It has a lot of problems just as a film. In fact, I don't think it works as a superhero movie or an adaptation, or even just a film in general. There are so many problems with it. In terms of as a movie itself, the problems with it as a movie is that we're expected to care about all of these characters by the end of the film. You see, the emotional send-off when, after, spoiler, Superman is dead, and everyone's really sad. There's a whole 10 minutes devoted to wrapping that up, and I guess we're expected to feel sad, but I mean, Henry Cavill has been Superman for like one movie, and he's barely in this one, even though it's meant to be a sequel to Man of Steel. He's like basically a background character in this film, and he's not particularly heroic, and I don't particularly like him, so frankly I don't really care that he's died. And I really don't care about Lois Lane, who there has been no background for at all. And I especially don't care about Batman and Superman's friendship, which springs up in like the last 10 minutes of the film. I mean, seriously. What does he say? He says, "I failed him in life, but I won't fail him in death." Are you kidding me? Literally 10 minutes ago in the film, you were about to kill him. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. And I think one of the things that really contributes to that feeling is how bad the editing is. I mean, so many scenes begin halfway through a conversation. We just show up and someone is saying something like a big conclusion to a conversation. Like, I think the worst one is the scene where Superman's talking to his mother. And, like, we get there and she's saying, "Oh, Clark, you don't owe this world a thing." And that whole scene is in one of the trailers. That whole scene is in one of the trailers. And it's not a dialogue. It's just monologue. He's just standing there, and she's delivering the moral of the conversation, basically. There's no build-up at all. It's just bizarre. I mean, and clearly they had to suppress it because they wanted to fit in all this other nonsense. But, I mean, that's really no excuse for bad filmmaking. And yeah, there are just way too many subplots that just don't seem to go anywhere. The whole white Portuguese thing just doesn't go anywhere. It just doesn't lead to anything substantial. In the end, it's just a dead end. And the same thing with Lois Lane in the Bullet. I mean, I guess they were trying to show us that Lex Luthor is actually bad. Oh, surprise, surprise, Lex Luthor is a bad guy. I mean, was that really worth devoting the scenes that they devoted to it, where she's confronting the general in the bathroom? And nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And I think the other thing it does really poorly is just storytelling in general. Like, it falls back on these really cheap storytelling mechanisms that we just see more and more in films these days. Like in Age of Ultron, at the beginning, we see Tony Stark has this vision of like all of the other Avengers dying or whatever, and that leads him to create the Ultron program, which, when you think about it, is a really poor motivation. Like, how he has this vision is never explained, and yet that leads to the central problem in the film, and that is very poor writing. And I mean, I think this film does it even worse than Ultron. I mean, Batman, when he decides to go after Superman, it's because he has a dream. He has a dream of him fighting Superman in some far-off future. That scene, that dream sequence, is what drives the plot forward. I mean, that's terrible writing. It's so lazy, because basically what the writers have done there is they've said, we no longer have to explain why this is happening. They don't have to invent a mechanism to deliver plot. It's just an illusion. There's no reason for it. It's coincidence. It's randomness, which is just bad writing. Same thing with the Jonathan Kent scene, where he delivers crucial ideas to Superman at a random time. But why is Superman having that vision? I mean, there's no reason for it. He's not drugged. He's not even asleep. He's just walking around the Arctic for some reason. I guess because he's sad, and he just sees his dead father. Okay, yeah, I guess Superman's schizophrenic. Is that it? I mean, how do you explain that? I mean, the film just doesn't consider basic things. Like, at the end, there are two coffins, one for Superman and one for Clark. There's only one body, guys. Like, there is only one body. How do you explain that? I mean, what is in Superman's coffin? Because we see Clark's body, so, I mean, Superman's coffin is empty, I guess. I guess the government just didn't bother to collect Superman's body? Is that what happened? They collected Zod's body, they didn't collect Superman's, though? And they were okay with it going missing? And, okay, if they did collect it and they realized that he was Clark Kent, they just kept it a secret? Is that what happened? I mean, what the hell? What the hell happened there? No explanation, absolutely no explanation, but they protected his identity, so when he is inevitably resurrected, the status quo will remain unchanged, which is so stupid. And now we get on to the problems with the film as an adaptation of the comic books. As I said at the beginning, at the top of the video, Batman and Superman are completely misrepresented in this film. Not only that, the stories, the source material that it is adapting is just betrayed by this film. I have no idea why you would try to blend the Death of Superman story with The Dark Knight Returns. I mean, they are so tonally distinct. And I think you see that there are two clear parts to this film. There's like a political drama at the beginning, and then there's like a pulpy superhero action movie with huge CGI nonsense at the end. And that is exactly The Dark Knight Returns, and then The Death of Superman. The Death of Superman is just the height of pulpy 90s action nonsense. And The Dark Knight Returns is just pure 80s political intrigue and drama and just social commentary and deconstruction. I've got a complete video about it, so I'm not going to talk about it again. But they're completely different. I have no idea why you would try to blend them. I think there is a problem with a film called Batman vs. Superman ending with the death of Superman also. Because the thing about Batman and Superman that I was hoping this film would understand is that they are equals. I'm going to put a panel up here now from Scott Snyder's run on Batman, where it's just after Batman and Superman have fought, because every writer has to make Batman and Superman fight at some point. And what Batman says in his monologue is, who wins in a fight between Batman and Superman? No one. No one wins in a fight between Batman and Superman. That's not the case here. That's not the case here at all. Batman utterly beats Superman. And in fact, the only reason he doesn't kill Superman is because of another coincidence. Another coincidence that he just happens to hear the name Martha. That's so sloppy, such poor writing, that, I mean, that is the reason, that's the reason they stopped fighting? The world's greatest detective he is not, frankly, not in this film. There is just no ideological struggle between them. That's the other problem with this. In The Dark Knight Returns, they weren't tricked into fighting each other, They chose to fight each other in a sense. I mean, Superman was working for the government, but there was an ideological divide between the two of them, and they were willing to kill each other. They were willing to do that because they represented competing ideologies, competing ways of looking at the world. In this film, they're not in competition at all. They are perfectly aligned, and the only reason they fight each other is because Batman is being a complete moron, is relying on his dreams for indication of what he should do, and Superman is not paying enough attention to notice that his mother has been abducted and conveniently moved to another location in the city. I mean, seriously? Lex's guys just picked her up from Kansas and actually brought her closer to where the fight was. I mean, does Superman not have super senses in this film? Can he not just hear for her? I mean, he could find Lois Lane from the Arctic. He could hear her falling off a building from the Arctic. He can't hear his mother being abducted? Absolute crap. Absolute nonsense. It's so inconsistent, so badly written. They're just trying to contrive a reason for these two to fight without actually doing the writing, the legwork necessary to make it happen. It just doesn't work. And yet, the film thinks that it is so clever. It's constantly name-dropping, left, right, and center. And just the number of references to The Dark Knight Returns in this film is just ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous, and it feels ham-fisted and just so forced. There is no thought put into these references at all. Like, in my Dark Knight Returns video, I talk about the Christopher Nolan reference to the Dark Knight Returns, and how cleverly I think that was done in comparison to this film, where it's just Batman literally just characters saying lines from the Dark Knight Returns. They just got a copy of the Dark Knight Returns, took some of the lines from it, and just put it straight into this film they've made. I mean, here are some examples. You know, Batman says to Alfred at the beginning, you know, "We've always been criminals, Alfred," which is what he says to Superman in The Dark Knight Returns. And then Alfred picks up a bottle of wine and he says to Batman, "Oh, there's going to be no wine for future generations of Waynes," which is exactly what he says in the comic book. Then Batman's talking to Superman at the end. You know, "The world doesn't make sense unless you force it to." Again, from The Dark Knight Returns, over and over and over again. It's not clever. The filmmakers, if they think they're clever, they are mistaken. Copying someone doesn't make you a genius. The film thinks it's so smart, and it just isn't. It doesn't have one original idea to its name. The news reporter saying, "Must there be a Superman?" Another reference to a Superman comic book. I mean, not so much a reference as it is just the title of a Superman comic book that they've just shoved in there without any actual discussion. And when they get up to a stage where there could actually be some discussion, Superman steps up to the podium. What happens? Explosion. I mean, that's this whole film, you know? That is this whole film summed up right there. The moment they have a chance to actually have a discussion, they completely blow it. They just, you know, insert explosion, end of story. Absolute crap. Absolute crap. And why? Someone tell me why Batman is so willing to kill people in this film. Okay? Somebody please tell me why he's just suddenly okay with killing. Did I miss a memo? When did it become okay for Batman to kill people? Seriously, when? I mean, I think if you want to read A Dark and Stormy Night, it's a book by an author whose name I can't remember at the moment, but I think it explains Batman's psychology really well. Or otherwise, just go have a look at Grant Morrison's Batman R.I.P. run from Batman 676 to 681. I think that brilliantly sums up Batman's psychology, why he doesn't kill, because he has this psyche that's stuck on the idea of being a child, on saving everyone, on this idea that no one has to die, this idea that he can prevent any further, you know, tragedies, the tragedy that befell him from ever happening again. And it's what makes him interesting as a character, and they've just completely taken that away. And instead, we've just got this guy wearing a batsuit running around punching people without doing any detective work, without having any sort of self-awareness at all. Oh man. And Lex Luthor, I mean, I don't really want to talk about Lex Luthor. It was such a joke. I mean, he is the Joker in this film. He's just the Joker, and just inventing these crazy harebrained schemes to pit people against each other. It's it's so played out. It's so bad, and it's not Lex Luthor. Why not just do Lex Luthor? Why does he have to be someone else? I don't understand. I know he's Alex Luthor or whatever, Lex's son. Stupid. Utterly, utterly stupid. And also his plan is stupid, because Superman already killed someone in the previous film. He killed Zod in the previous film, so he wasn't unblemished at all. This idea that if he could get him to kill Batman, it would somehow take off the veneer of Superman is so stupid, because he already killed someone in the previous film. We all saw it, and we all hated it. We didn't forget it. I don't know. I just don't know. At all. At all. And also, I think people saying that the extended version of this film is going to fix it are mistaken, because, frankly, unless they scrap everything and start again, I just don't think there's any fixing this film. It's fundamentally flawed. And I mean, I guess you could say there is good action in this film. There is good action. It's the best Batman action ever, easily. But, I mean, I don't read Batman for the action, obviously. I read it for the story, the mystery, the intrigue, the detective stuff, the noir elements, and none of them are present here. It's a poor man's version of these characters without any real thought put into it, and that is probably the worst thing I can say about it. But look, I think I'll do a full review of the film, a proper scripted breakdown of the film, when the extended version comes out later in the year. Which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is the current status of this channel. I'm not fooling myself into thinking that I'm a proper YouTuber or anything like that. However, I have been a lot more successful than I ever expected to be. I'm amazed that so many people have watched my videos. I know it's not a huge number again, but still, to have anyone watching at all is amazing. So thank you very much for watching, for liking, for subscribing, for leaving comments. I really appreciate the comments. I really want to get some discussion going and stuff like that. And I think I'm going to start a Twitter account, and I'll put the tag in my description for this video. But the announcement I have to make is that right now I'm actually living in Japan because I'm studying abroad this semester, which unfortunately means I can't make videos on the basis that I'd like to, and I can't make them to the quality that I'd like, because I've got my computer still at home. I've got a laptop with me. It's only got 4 gig of RAM. It's from like 2011, and it's not up to the task, I'm afraid. I also don't really have an internet connection at the moment, because I'm living in Kochi City in southern Japan, if you want to look it up. It's almost rural. We're surrounded. We're on a fault line, actually. I was told today that we're expecting a tsunami sometime in the next 30 years, so that's nice. I mean, hopefully it won't happen in the next 6 months, but any time in the next 30 years there could be a tsunami here, apparently. But I'm loving it. It's really cool. I'm trying to learn some Japanese, so I'm going to be quite busy anyway. But yeah, when I get back, though, you have my word, there will be more videos. I want to make a new video about Batman and Superman and them fighting, and why Batman can actually beat Superman, because I think there is an interesting story in there if you actually look at it rationally and with some mind for the canon. And there's so much I want to talk about. The new DC Rebirth launch lineup, All-Star Batman, that looks amazing. Having seen nothing else of it, it looks amazing. Scott Snyder is amazing. The end of his run on New 52 Batman I want to talk about. I read issue 50 before I left Australia, and what a run. Sensational stuff. I've been reading Daredevil Volume 2 recently, the Brian Michael Bendis stuff, which is just incredible. I'd love to do a video about either classic Frank Miller Daredevil, or this Bendis stuff, or the Mark Waid run, which is equally brilliant. And of course I want to talk about The Dark Knight 3, The Master Race, when I get home, and I think that'll all be out. I'll do maybe a review of that, because I don't think enough time will have passed to really look at it properly. I'm enjoying it so far. Obviously it was never going to be as good as The Dark Knight Returns, and it is like fairly muted in comparison to his previous work, because I think DC's really had to put Frank Miller on a leash. They don't trust him to make his own stuff anymore because he's obviously crazy. Um, so that's all happening, and I really look forward to making those videos, but I am gonna have to wait until I get home, which will be probably September. If you want to follow me, I'm gonna make that Twitter account, I promise, and I'll post to it whenever I can about comic books, video games, movies, whatever. Maybe just what's happening in Japan. And look, just again, thank you everyone for watching. Thanks so much for all the support. It's been great. I really look forward to continuing this. And yeah, I mean, my condolences. If you've seen Batman vs. Superman, my condolences. Please let me know what you thought of the film in the comments. And yeah, guys, take it easy.